Hello everybody, my name is Andrew Wiebe and I'm excited to have you join us today for this episode of the Prairie Podcast. Once again, if you're a student, a staff, faculty, alumni, parent of a student, you're a potential person interested in coming to Prairie, or you just want to listen to this podcast, you're welcome to join us because we've got some exciting stuff for you today. And including that, talking about that, we've got Dr. James Enns with us here today. So why don't you introduce yourself, who you are, what you're doing here at Prairie. Let's hear a bit more about you.
Thank you, Andrew, first of all, for inviting me to be part of the podcast series. It's a pleasure to be able to do this. As far as my position here, I'm professor of history in the college, have been serving in that capacity since 2000. So probably am the longest serving faculty member at present. And then prior to that, I was also on campus, but in the capacity of a high school social studies teacher when Prairie still had a general ed division. So I spent pretty much my entire vocational life here on campus at a place I never thought I would end up. But that in brief is at least positions me in terms of who I am at Prairie.
Yeah, certain. So would you mind digging deeper, before your time at Prairie, where were you on? Because I know you've got some history with Europe.
Yes.
Would you mind sharing a bit more about that?
Okay. Well, my parents are Prairie alums.
Okay.
They were here in the late 40s, and then during the 50s, my dad was on staff, taught in the music department. Through a series of circumstances. They both come out of Mennonite background. They were part of a missions organization that actually had its founding here at Prairie as a gospel quartet. Was known as the Jans team. My dad was the only Enns with a group of three brothers, but also related by marriage. Went to Germany to conduct the basic, they were sort of doing what Billy Graham did all over the place, except they were focusing on German-speaking Europe. And so the call on all their lives was such that they realized this was more than just a series of short-term commitments, which it started out as. And grew into a full-time residential work. So our family moved there when I was 1.5.
Okay.
So I was born in Three Hills, have no memory, obviously, of the first year and a half. But my growing up memories are as a missionary kid, third culture kid, in what was then West Germany.
Okay.
Went to school there. Our mission started not initially a boarding school, but a school for Christian kids. Grew into a boarding school, is now known as Black Forest Academy. And the mission organization has now morphed into what's called Teach Beyond, and they're doing with education what that first generation of missionary families did through sort of large-scale evangelism. So my growing up overseas, coming back to Canada intermittently, because that's what we did for home assignment, deputation, that sort of thing, is that kind of traditional TCK sort of trajectory.
Okay. Well, very good. Very good. And jumping ahead now, I also know that you have another title, Reverend, correct? Would you mind sharing a bit more about your work you do at St. Barnabas and what that all entails?
Yeah, glad to do that. When I came here to Prairie in '83 as a single young man, just going to be focusing on my teaching, no time for romantic entanglements and all that. And wouldn't you know it, just down the hall there was this beautiful art teacher who I got to know very quickly, and we formed a romantic attachment. We're married a year later. That also wasn't just a marriage of two teachers. She was raised Anglican, and kind of made it plain to me that if I was going to date her, she wasn't going to stop being Anglican, so I had to kind of join forces with her, which I was glad to do. It was being raised Mennonite, but there was much in my education sort of leading up to that point as a historian of Christianity that had kind of made me interested in that stream of the Reformation. And so in attending this small little local country church, which eventually ran out of a financial sort of wherewithal to support a resident minister, in pursuing sort of lay leadership and then talking to the bishop of our diocese, he was willing to ordain me as I worked through a sense of calling to the priesthood. And not to be non-stipendiary. In other words, I'm a worker priest, I have a day job, but I can also offer, in the Anglican communion, priests can do baptisms and serve communion, not lay people. And so it enabled our local congregation to also not have to sort of bring out a hired gun from, say, Calgary or something, spiritual gun, that is, and be able to serve more the community more fully, more sacramentally. Yep. And so in 2009, I was ordained as an Anglican minister, and do that. I guess sort of on the side, but I see it integrated in what I do as a professor as well. But it's just been a kind of an interesting opening up of an opportunity and a calling I never sensed I would have early on in my teaching career.
Wow, that's a really fascinating story, actually, and the way things all lined up,
Yeah, I kind of backed into it.
But you've really enjoyed it. And
I have. I think developing a pastoral perspective, not only for my congregation there, but also seeing more my role on campus, or embracing, however informally, a pastoral calling to the way I teach, even to the way I relate to faculty, because it used to be there were always senior faculty and I could be a younger guy. Now I'm the senior faculty. And so there is a little bit of that kind of, for a lack of a better term, without being too heavy-handed, a kind of a shepherding or pastoral quality, especially as new faculty members come on. And it's something I've enjoyed sort of taking on and informally being given permission to do.
Well, I think it's really incredible, seeing the way that God has led you, and He gave you that opportunity, even though you didn't really expect it or see that happening, but you got that position there, the way you're able to assist in that pastoral position, and now that's transferring into your role as a professor. And now thinking back to you as professor at Prairie College, and that's your working role right now. Right. What would you say is your favorite part about the position? Fun, serious, maybe it is this pastoral aspect. What would you say is your favorite part of being a professor at Prairie?
Just talking to former students like you. That's the right answer.
It is, yes.
It is one.
Teaching a particular student named Andrew Wiebe.
Oh man, that's a tough question, and I don't know if it comes down to any one thing. I mean, I love the classroom, and I get great delight out of having students who come in with a very either jaded or suspicious look towards history, and kind of go, why am I having to take this? And then come out of class with a greater appreciation. It might not be their favorite subject, but I've moved the needle somewhat for them. And that is a small victory. So that's one. And the other thing that I think I find, especially in the last few years, increasing delight is the faculty team that we have here. It's really very special, especially when I compare it to stories from other teaching environments, from professional peers that work in different, Christian and non-Christian environments. I'm realizing how special what we have here really is, that it isn't the norm. And so I'm trying to savor as I come to, I can see the retirement date, however, maybe not specifically, but it's looming, given my age. I'm just trying to savor and appreciate with deep gratitude this gift that is happening in these latter years.
Yeah, that's a wonderful gift, and we're appreciative to have you on the team as well as all the other faculty. It's a great honor. It's a good thing to have a favorite about both the teaching and the faculty there. And again, I'm curious, as being a part of that faculty team for so many years, you have a long history with Prairie, even though, as you said, maybe it wasn't where you thought you would go. But you've seen Prairie through the years. Yeah. I'm curious to hear from your perspective, what do you see as being the mission of Prairie? How do you see that playing out? From your own words, how would you describe that? And maybe from your years of experience too.
I mean, without getting cliche, which you invariably do. Our mission statement, is encouraging students to love God, to go out and take that love in some transformative way into various marketplaces, calling to know Christ and make Him known. I mean, these are all just they're more than boilerplate slogans. We really do take them seriously, and I think Prairie over the years has defined that or seen that mapping onto cultural trends, not always the same. I think back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, well, even back probably into the 30s, there was this sense of missions is about going overseas. There was a strong sense of a kind of a spiritual way in which, a spiritual geography by which we talked about Christian lands and heathen lands, and so you go to the regions beyond, right? And there was a great sending impetus. Now, of course, in more later years, we're still, probably since about the 80s and 90s, we've seen the increased erosion of a visible Christian presence and perhaps influence in our own society. And so that mission is as much about reaching our own culture as it is about sending. Mm-hmm. And then a third dimension is with, in a sense, the world coming to us, the world coming to North America, and the opportunities to serve expat or diaspora communities that are from outside the traditional sort of Western orbit. That is an opportunity we're just kind of finding our feet with. But hopefully, and I see it representing a great potential in the future. So it's always been about mission and about equipping people for service. It's just the cultural shifts and how we serve and are attuned to those in ways that are strategic and we sense God leading us to. That's always been the dynamic.
Yeah, oh, well, certainly. And I think that's one of the best explanations I've heard in a while. But
you can quote me on that.
Yeah, I'll quote you on that. Sorry, I'll cite you. But I think what you're getting at is valuable, is that it's always about mission, but there's cultural dynamics within our own society that determine where that mission is headed toward.
Yeah. And how we respond. And I don't think it means always changing to fit the current fashions. There is something, and President Mark Maxwell really helped remind us of that when he came on, that said, our core business is teaching good, robust biblical theology and grounding people in the Word. And so that remains the core of our curriculum. And how that in turn is incarnated in various opportunities. Well, now we've launched a business program. That's great. We've partnered with various organizations, with various medical professions, and that's great. But in the midst of that, and aviation, of course, another one, we still want to keep our educational and missional core rooted in a robust biblical education, and so that is our anchor.
Yeah, most certainly. And thinking about that biblical foundation, as a professor, what do you see being the value of getting an education here at Prairie? And maybe from your perspective, it's a better question to ask, what do you hope to impart in students by the time they leave?
Education has taken on, it's undergone a shift, and not just in the secular landscape, but also in Christian circles. And that is, increasingly, the language of education is described as a commodity or some kind of business exchange, so it's value for dollar. And in some way, I can't blame people for thinking that, because the cost of education has gone up. Even here at Prairie, it would be great if we could go back to Old Prairie to say, yeah, oh man, it's too bad we're going to have to raise tuition costs to $150 a year this year. I mean, those are just ridiculous kind of ways and yet at one point, they could do that. There was a financial model in place whereby faculty and staff were willing to, in a sense, eat a lot of or bear a lot of the costs themselves in order that cost would not be an opportunity, a barrier to coming here. Yeah. That has changed. However, given the fact that yes, education it costs, and we wish we could offer it at a much more affordable cost to not be participating in the debt machine of student debt. That said, biblical education surrounded by or integrated with, a vocational option of some sort is going to be invaluable, because and we're hearing this from a faster paced, increasingly diversifying and shifting business or vocational landscape, is that the jobs that many of you come in thinking might be available for you, by the time you get out, some might be there, but most of that is going to shift and change. And schools just can't keep up. We're not built to be that versatile and nimble. So let's not worry as much about keeping up with all the job training relevancies, because businesses are saying we can actually teach you that ourselves. What we need are people of integrity, people of moral character, people who can express that well, people who think well, and not just critically in that broad sense, but people who think well morally.
Yes.
And are committed to, they're not just smart, they're wise, and they're committed to gaining wisdom. And we think with a biblical education, that is the best grounding for preparing people across a wide variety of vocations, some of which we can train them for here, many of which they will only be able to get training for once they're out there, because that training hasn't been invented yet, right? So we're finding, I would say that would be the value of a prairie education. It's worth investing in, because you're investing in your life and your character. You're not just, you're more than just the work you do.
Yeah, certainly. And I've been able to see that play out with a lot of alumni, hearing their stories is, they ended up in a career they didn't expect themselves to head into, but they all attest to the same fact that it's the Bible and going back to the Word and the teaching and the training and different quotes and different things that they had built up in their character that they had learned here, the community that they developed, the people skills they gained. That's what stuck with them, and it actually allowed them to get into this career they had no intention of going into. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to build character over a good time where you can, the world does move fast. And by coming here, you almost slow down a bit.
Well, yeah, we hope that's one of the things that we can also encourage students to do, because if you are just on the treadmill of get ahead and check all the boxes, you are missing, you are not tending to the things of your own interior life, which are really truly substantive. And that's one of the things we call our students here. We also call them to a range of cultural breadth, which is why I teach history. Because the Bible as a historical document has much to say and value about historical context. We have a Jesus of history who's not just some figure outside of history, and continues to work in and through history. And so therefore I see the role of the humanities, and to the degree in which we're able to offer them, as an important complementary component to developing a robust theology.
That's excellent. And now stepping away from Prairie as a whole, turning just to you as an individual. We're talking about individuals now, thinking about the work of the interior. I'm curious, is there anything that God has been teaching you lately? Is there a lesson, is there a truth, an encouragement, a psalm, phrase, something that God has been stirring within you?
I think I'm trying to reclaim just the discipline of stillness and meditation. A number of years ago, Ken Shigematsu was here and talked about building a trellis that centered around various disciplines and commitments that sort of work from the inside out. And one of the things he reminded me of, and was, walked us through in some of the sessions, is just the importance of meditation, to be still and know that I'm God. And that's hard to do on a daily basis, because we have so many things crying for our attention, for the urgency. And as of late, I feel that that's one of the things that I'm being called back to, because if I can't practice that, and we talk about slowing down and all, then I'm not walking the walk, right? So that has been finding that discipline, even if it's just 15 minutes at the beginning of the day. I'm finding, I believe it's working. God is using that to work things in me, maybe to become a little more patient. And not just patient, but see how to put this. Maybe a compassionate patience. So that's, I'm trusting that. That's what it's producing, that fruit of the Spirit in me. But it's a slow work. But God is patient with me.
Well, certainly. And something I've actually been looking at as well for the last while, to know God is you have to be still to know God, and drawing even the concept of abiding in stillness, abiding in Christ. If you're so busy that you never abide in Christ, never be still without distraction. Sometimes we do our devotions, put some music on or something,
but it's
being okay with the silence and just in God's presence. I think it's a hard discipline to learn, but it bears great fruit.
And that passage from John 15 has become sort of one of the central kind of go-to verses that I'll come to in each of those sessions. I think along with the Matthew 11, come and learn from me. Those, and then the Psalm is 46, I think, be still and know that I'm God. Those are some of the kind of the building blocks around which that inform my meditative discipline, at least to date, and it's been good. It's not a magic wand that makes the rest of the day go well, but I think it gives a bit of a context of calm that says I don't need to be rattled by this. God's still in control.
God's still in control.
And I don't have to fix all the problems of the world, or even all the ones at Prairie.
That's a relief, isn't it?
It is. The reminder is He's God and I'm not. And He doesn't expect me to be the Holy Spirit. He expects me to be open to what the Holy Spirit wants to accomplish through me. So it's a good lesson in humility as well.
Oh, wonderful. Well, Dr. Enns, it's been a wonderful pleasure having you here on the Prairie Podcast. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
Study history. Come to Prairie. Study some history. Study the Bible. We're relaunching the humanities degree as a ministry degree in integrated studies. And so I would say at least go on, once we got that up on the website, come and check that out.
Most certainly. So if you are interested in learning more about the humanities program and the way it's changing and developing, or if you just want to learn anything more about Prairie, you can check us out at www.prairie.edu. If you know someone else you would love to have on the podcast, another faculty member, a staff member, a student, an alumni, you can send us an email at alumni@prairie.edu or marketing@prairie.edu. Thank you so much, Dr. Enns. It was a pleasure having you with us.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here.